Yeah, our process is very kind of, it's kind of amorphous. It's kind of, you can't lock it down. And songs may start from somebody singing into their phone. It may start from sitting down at a piano or guitar. We may have a couple of us together, like kind of like improvising on an idea. They started from little like beats on the laptop, you know, whatever. But I guess, you know, one of the things that does always tie it all together is the philosophy that the band started before there was an album called Hybrid Theory. The band was called Hybrid Theory. And that's kind of been our, somewhat of our MO, our philosophy since day one. Because there's 6 guys in the band and we all like different things. And it's fun for us to take all those different, you know, things that you may not have ever heard before together and push them together in a way that feels sometimes uncomfortable, sometimes really exciting or interesting. And these days we're older, we like even more stuff, we've heard even more music in our lifetime. We're working with Rick, who's had experience on many of these albums in many different genres over time. And that's the fun, you know, that's the fun of making a record like this.
An interviewer asked a question. I was doing an interview with Brad, our guitarist, and asked a question that really clued me into what I think is a common misconception about our writing process. And he had asked, it was so funny, he had asked Brad, he said, like, it kind of sounds like you're doing more work on this record than you have in the last few. And Brad had no idea what he meant, and I instantly knew what he meant.
Yeah, I know what that means.
And Brad's just like, well, and then he's like, yeah, there's more guitar on it. And Brad was like, really? Like there is? And I think there's this notion that, you know, maybe on like the last on 1,000 Suns or some of these other records, Brad's sitting like holding a guitar in the studio, just being like, guys, like, when do you need me to play something? Which couldn't be, as far as our process, couldn't be further from the truth. And when we're in the studio, it's all kind of like adding ideas, and, you know, Mike's bringing ideas in, and then we're kind of brainstorming on it and adding and layering instruments. And at the end of it, maybe it has a live bass track, maybe it doesn't, maybe it's all sampled. And if it does, maybe Mike played it, or maybe I played it, or maybe Brad played it. It doesn't
Sometimes
really,
we don't even remember.
Yeah, and it doesn't really work where we're all kind of sitting on our instruments of what people think of we play in the band, like sitting around waiting to like do our part in the song.
And you remember like when I remember we stopped putting in the beginning of the band, we used to put like Brad Delson guitar, Rob Borden drums, and we stopped doing that on like the 3rd record, I think it was, because it wasn't true anymore. That's just not what we didn't play those instruments anymore. Like if you hear a guitar, it could be probably 4 different guys in the band would be your option. It could be any one of us. And also just like as we go through like making the record, those things like start to mix and match, like especially in the drums, you know, Rob's, like some of the sample stuff and Rob's kit like just start to merge, and you don't even know if the sound is like a live sound or not, because there's like 3 different sounds overlapped, and they all exist at different times in the song. It's really complicated, and it's really
getting into the weeds.
Yeah, but it's fun, you know? It's like our thing is just it's weird, and if you were to sit in the studio with us for a week, I think you get a sense of like how, like, it's like a natural flow. It's like a walkabout, you know? You just kind of leave and take off, and you're done when you're done.
This process for us, I think, was decidedly quicker than what we've been able to do in the past, and I think a big part of that being because we intentionally didn't. We tried to pace out our touring a little bit better with our actual, you know, writing and record process. So I think, you know, it was maybe a year or so, but a lot of we were writing even while we were touring, and then on breaks of touring and stuff like that, we were being intentional about being in the studio and just keeping the creative process kind of moving forward. And on the other end of that, I think in the past we had done some touring cycles that had lasted a couple of years and that were pretty extensive, at the end of which we kind of needed to unplug and rest a little bit somewhat before we were able to even write stuff that we liked, which made those record writing processes that much longer. So I think all told it, would you say like a year-ish?
Yeah, it's hard to say.
Okay.
With that, I mean, the difficult part I think now is that this record is done, officially closed the studio on it and everything else a few weeks ago or whatever. But by the same token, I don't really consider us like out of the studio. I still kind of consider us being in a writing mode.
Yeah, we've definitely got like open sessions of like stuff that's in progress for whenever. Who knows when it could be used? I mean, but it'll probably make its way to the next record, and that'll be the focus then.
Yeah. So
but
it's
for the band, it's like people have this fantasy that maybe it's true for some bands. It's not true for us, that we envision a song, we like imagine it, and maybe you like dream it, and you wake up and it's the song. Like, let's write that song, and then
Mike comes
you
and
like
sings it to me, and I'm like, oh, cool.
And I go,
so
this is the rap part, and Chester goes, cool. Here's the singing, and Dave plays the bass, and we know it.
A month later,
we know it, and then we go in and we
written
record it, and then it's done. Like. We've talked about this in the studio. I wish that any of us were that like smart. I wish we were the kind of geniuses that could envision the thing and then execute it. Like, that's not how it works at all for us. It's the complete opposite, where we have this like glimmer of an idea and we wander until we find something. And oftentimes it's almost like if you were in the desert and you think you see a mirage and you start wandering toward it and it's gone. It never existed in the first place. But then you wander your way over to something that's cool, and you go, oh, this is cool. It wasn't what I was looking for, but I'm here now, and I like it. That's kind of how we end up with what we've got. And that's badass. Run DMC, Beastie Boys, and then eventually it turned into like, what would it be, Public Enemy and Big Daddy Kane, then like NWA and stuff like that, Ice-T, and then eventually MC Hammer, Vanilla Ice, Snow.
MC Scat Cat.
Yeah, all the best, most classic rap stuff. No, but I mean, like, I think about my favorite rap stuff, like, people love to make lists these days. There's always like a list. Oh, the best rappers and the best whatever. And the stuff I really got excited about growing up was probably a little more less pop, a little more underground, and a little more like lots of rhyming words. It's like, that's just what I liked. And so at this point, like, I feel I'm getting into a nice groove. I got into a nice groove on this record of just writing some stuff that felt a little bit more like that. Like, it's a little more, I don't know, there's a little more like bragginess or something, like a little more aggressive kind of attitude about the rapping, as opposed to, I think some of the earlier stuff on our records might have been a little more introverted, or at least self-deprecating or something. I don't know what to call it. At the very least, it's the new stuff is almost like more of a battle rap kind of attitude sometimes.
The coolest thing for me with Rick at this stage is just that there's a part of my brain that knows all the different things that he's worked on and how much of a important part he is as far as music history goes. But it's also, he is such a unique individual that he doesn't impose that on you in any way when you're hanging out with him. And it's just, you're hanging out with a great guy who, and you're talking about music and creative things. He doesn't have like a cynical bone in his body. He has every right to, with everything he's seen and done in the business. And there's no part of him that's at all tarnished by that. There isn't. He just loves the creative process, and he loves music, and I think he loves to be around it and a part of it. And it really is, it's inspiring just to be around that. It's definitely a good thing.
And I think too, just like being able to get to the end of a record and have Rick be as excited as, like, it feels like he's excited as we are. Mm-hmm. You know, that's like, it's a real, it does help push it over the top. You know, we feed off of each other's excitement, all 7 of us, you know. And, you know, I guess like there is obviously, like, just getting back to your question too, but there is definitely a part of me that feels like if Rick says, I really like that verse, if it like a rap verse says he really likes a rap verse of mine, I probably do get a little more excited about that than somebody else saying it. Just because it's, you know, I mean, he made some of my favorite rap records of all time.